It is truly an honor for Cindy and me to be here with you all today. As the son of a U.S. Marine from Billings, Montana, I learned to value service and sacrifice of all the men and women who serve. The award that Corporal Stogner received today is long overdue. Anyone who knew Jim or heard about his story would agree that his actions deserved this high honor. Some might say it should be made into a movie. Yet the chaos of battle stole from us several key witnesses that delayed this process. Jim is no doubt a Marine's Marine, the kind we read about, the kind we watch movies about. Jim's story is a thread in the fabric of our nation's history, which remind us that freedom isn't free. Jim, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifices. Congratulations, and Semper Fi.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of General Robert B. Neller, Commandant of the Marine Corps, welcome to the Navy Cross Award presentation to recognizing Corporal James H. Stogner for his extraordinary heroism in action on 5 April 1967 and faithful service to his country and Corps. Today's ceremony event occurred 52 years ago today. Not only bound the lives of Jim and Eli together, but for many of their fellow Marines in this room as well. The strength of today's Marine Corps stems in a large measure from the observance of customs and traditions, each contributing its share of stability and combat effectiveness. Please rise for the invocation delivered by Jim Porter, Department Chaplain, VFW.
Will you please all uncover? Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, you who have given us this good land and its founding truths for our American heritage, we ask your presence as we gather to recognize a man who has gone above and beyond the call of duty in defense of our heritage. In your providence, Corporal James Stogner's valor and sacrifice saved the lives of his men and fellow Marines that trying day in Vietnam. By your grace, we know that he continues to live today according to those same values. Honor such heroes who have woven the tapestry of this great nation. Pray that you may enable each of us, Americans, to likewise live lives of valor and sacrifice every day to continue weaving the tapestry of America. We are grateful for all the people and the events you have used to mold this man who stands before us this day. We are grateful, too, for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who have given their lives in this long conflict. Give your grace and strength to their families and friends as they live with the loss of their loved ones and comrades. And now, may your presence be with us in this hour. May your guiding grace be upon our national leadership. Grant all in our military, especially those who serve today in harm's way, the strength and wisdom that comes only from you. May you be honored in every endeavor to which you have called America and her citizens. And finally, may your favor be upon Corporal James H. Stogner and his family. President Calvin Coolidge once wrote, A nation that forgets its offenders itself will be forgotten. And that we as a nation hold him and those like him who have given so much in our common defense unforgotten. In this we come before you and pray in your holy name. Amen.
Please take your seats.
Out on the colors! Forward, march.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of the national anthem. At this time, we ask you to remove all headgear and place your right hand over your heart.
Please stand. Come. Carry. Come. House the colors! Forward, march.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The Navy Cross was instituted in part due to the entrance of the United States into World War I. Originally, the Navy Cross was lower in precedence than the Medal of Honor and the Navy Distinguished Service Medal because it was awarded for both combat heroism and for other distinguished service. Congress revised this on 7 August 1942, making the Navy Cross a combat-only decoration that follows the Medal of Honor in order of precedence. Since the medal was established, it has been awarded more than 6,300 times. Since the 11 September attacks, the Navy Cross has been awarded 47 times, with 2 of them having the name of recipient held in secret. At this time, I have the honor of introducing Captain Dixon, who will read the summary of action for Corporal Stogner's Navy Cross Medal.
On the evening of April 5, 1967, Corporal, then Lance Corporal, James H. Stogner, and his fellow Marines of 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, specifically Charlie Company, were once again fighting the North Vietnamese Army in never-ending battles. This day on the street without joy would show how much courage he really had. Charlie Company had been moved into a position to support an auto resupply run that had been ambushed. The 1st and 2nd platoons were put on line in an open, dried up rice paddy. The objective was to sweep through a tree line and hedgerow into a village where the NVA were suspected of hiding. 3rd platoon had been left in the rear under the supervision of the executive officer to provide support and aid for the casualties. As the sun set, Lance Corporal Stogner was standing in the assault line next to the A gunner, who was on the left side of Lance Corporal Eli Fobbs, the machine gunner. Lance Corporal Stogner was the ammo support man for Lance Corporal Fobbs. A fire team leader was on Lance Corporal Fobbs' right side. The command group was slightly forward and to the right side. Darkness fell suddenly as they approached the hedgerow tree line. A call for illumination was made. Lance Corporal Stogner, having been in country for several months, knew the difference between that sound and the sound of artillery rounds, and kneeled to reduce his body size, as did the more experienced Marines. When the lights came on, an automatic burst from his rifle took out 3 NVA soldiers directly in front of him and at very close range. He dropped to a prone position as he began to receive return fire. His rifle was struck at the receiver, slamming it back into his face, breaking his nose, and rendering his rifle inoperable. Grenade and mortar rounds were exploding around him, adding to the confusion of the battle. The command group had been running towards the head group where the enemy fire was coming from, but were immediately shot down. As Lance Corporal Stogner regained his focus, the light from the illumination rounds went out. His platoon had been caught in the open and cut to pieces. The NVA had been waiting to ambush them and were only 15 yards in trenches dug in the hedgerow. Almost every member of Lance Corporal Stogner's platoon had been killed or wounded. 2nd platoon on the flank had also been hit hard. Only the radio man from the command group survived. The company commander was dead. Lance Corporal Stogner was now lying in the dark and wondering what to do next. Around him, he could hear the sounds of wounded and dying Marines moaning and calling out for help. He then began to hear the sounds of the NVA soldiers. They were moving down the line in the dark, shooting the wounded Marines in the head. And stripping the bodies of their weapons and gear. At this point, Lance Corporal Stogner showed his true mettle. He could have crawled off in the dark and gotten away, but he did not. Crawling close to the wounded Marines, he waited for the enemy soldiers who were killing the wounded and gathering their gear. When an individual NVA soldier came close, Lance Corporal Stogner tripped him and killed him. He used the dark and the only weapon he had left, a K-bar knife. Crawling to another location, he was able to kill another NVA soldier the same way. He was able to kill a total of 3 NVA soldiers with his K-bar knife, crawling around to escape detention. By doing this, he saved more lives of the wounded Marines who would have been next in line to be shot if he had not been there. Noticing their men were not coming back, the NVA began a hand grenade barrage. After receiving a concussion from the Chi-Coms, Lance Corporal Stogner found himself lying alone in the dark but this time there were no sounds of any kind. He was about to start crawling out of the ambush site when he heard the screams of Lance Corporal Fobbs coming from the tree line. Lance Corporal Fobbs and his machine gun had been captured by the enemy. They had been dragged farther into the vegetation, across the enemy trenches, behind the hedgerow and tree line, and into the enemy territory. Lance Corporal Stogner found a wounded A gunner and told him he was going after Lance Corporal Fobbs. Still using darkness as his cover, Lance Corporal Stogner crawled to the hedgerow tree line, managing to navigate the enemy trenches without detection. Following the screams of Lance Corporal Fobbs, he cautiously made his way through the vegetation to where Lance Corporal Fobbs was being held in a small clearing. Using the darkness and vegetation as cover, he crept forward to where the sandy ground allowed him to see 4 NVA soldiers around Lance Corporal Fobbs, who was on the ground. They were kicking him and jabbing sticks into his wounds. As he watched, one of the NVA soldiers stood up and moved towards where he was hiding in the dark vegetation. Lance Corporal Stogner allowed him to pass, then grabbed him from behind and quietly killed him with his K-bar. As Lance Corporal Stogner was deciding what to do, a second NVA soldier stood up and approached his hiding place. Lance Corporal Stogner was able to dispatch him in the same way as the first NVA soldier. The other 2 NVA were still intent on torturing Lance Corporal Fobbs. Lance Corporal Stogner screamed as he charged, surprising those captors. With a hand thrust of his knife to the chest of one man, he was able to grab the second soldier. He wrestled with him to the ground and did away with him. All 4 of Lance Corporal Fobbs' captors were now deceased. Without hesitation, he picked up Lance Corporal Fobbs, threw him over his shoulder, grabbed his machine gun, and moved past the 4 bodies of the NVA who had captured Lance Corporal Fobbs. He ran as fast as he could through the vegetation, across the enemy trenches into the killing field. Small arms rounds and grenade explosions were still going off all around them, giving flashes of light. They made it back to friendly lines where Lance Corporal Stogner handed Lance Corporal Fobbs to other Marines for medical assistance and went back to taking care of his own duties and cleaning Lance Corporal Fobbs' M60 in spite of needing medical assistance himself. Lance Corporal Stogner sustained a concussion, a broken nose, and shrapnel wounds. He suffered severe wounds to his side and his legs and was unable to walk. 21 Marines died that night, and more than 30 were wounded. Some of those wounded Marines would not have survived had it not been for Lance Corporal Stogner. Neither Lance Corporal Stogner nor Lance Corporal Fobbs returned to the unit they fought with that night. Continual firefights and massive casualties in the field meant that events and paperwork got lost in the shuffle. Shortly after April 5th, the next ranking officer and a person the original recommendation was given to stepped on a landmine, sealing the fate of the forgotten recommendation. Lance Corporal Stogner could have crept off in the darkness, but chose to remain on the battlefield, continuing to fight with only his knife. Then he chose to sneak into enemy territory to rescue a fellow Marine who probably would have been killed and possibly mutilated when the NVA got tired of torturing him. My allergies are beginning to bother me. Lance Corporal Stogner's bravery and extraordinary heroism on the night of April 5th, 1967 was never recognized until now, 52 years later. The Navy Cross acknowledges he did perform far beyond the call of duty for an 18-year-old ammo humper. His story only adds to the legend of the Walking Dead. I got to get out of here. These allergies are horrible.
Personnel to receive award. Center. March.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the reading of Corporal Stogner's Navy Cross citation. Attention to orders. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Navy Cross to Lance Corporal James H. Stogner, United States Marine Corps, for service as set forth as in the following. For extraordinary heroism in action with the enemy on 5 April 1967, while serving as part of a machine gun team assigned to Company C, 1st Battalion, 9 Marines in the Republic of Vietnam. As Company C began to sweep to clear a hamlet, they were taken under intense enemy fire from automatic weapons, grenades, and mortars. The lead platoon and company command group sustained devastating casualties, the company commander among them. When the enemy exploited the situation and overran a portion of the company, Lance Corporal Stogner's machine gun team leader was severely wounded. 4 enemy soldiers dragged the wounded Marine and his machine gun into a nearby tree line where they began to torture him. Lance Corporal Stogner, despite his own painful wounds and with a complete disregard for his own safety, pursued the enemy into the tree line to rescue his fellow Marine. After his service rifle malfunctioned, he used his K-bar fighting knife to kill the enemy soldiers, then picked up his machine gunner and the machine gun and carried them back to friendly lines. Lance Corporal Stogner's bold, decisive actions saved the life of his fellow Marine, and his undaunted courage and complete dedication to duty reflected great credit upon him and were in keeping with the highest tradition of the Marine Corps and United States Naval Service. For the President, Richard V. Spencer, Secretary of the Navy. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Frank Labuti.
One more time, put your hands together for this American hero. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Take your seats. Now, what you're going to hear now is not in my notes, because I'm filled with patriotism and love for Montana. And here's what I want you to do. Work with me on this. If you served in the United States Army, put your hands together. Hoorah! If you serve the United States Air Force, do the same. If you are a sailor, put your hands together for all of those who serve with you. And any Coast Guardsmen, put your hands together for yourself and your fellows. And all U.S. Marines, put your hands together for the Corps. Senator, stand up, sir. Thank you for your kind words, introduction, and your warm welcome to all of us outside Montana. This is a wonderful place. Great time, great place, great friends, and I salute you, sir. Thank you. Senator, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow Marines. I am deeply honored to be with you all today, and honored all the more to have had the great privilege of presenting the Navy Cross to this outstanding Marine. And to do so on the anniversary date of his heroic actions on 5 April 1967. My note says, pause for effect. Now let me recognize and thank the following friends who have been instrumental in making today a reality. Again, Senator, thank you, sir. The judge, or as we know him, Captain Wally Dixon. Hoorah, Wally. And his wife, Dana. Let me also take this opportunity to recognize Mike Waters. Mike, where are you? Veterans Affairs guy, works for the congressman. Good job, sir. First Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Hoorah, take a bow to you and your Marines and the color guard. Thank you. And Robin, where are you? Robin, come forward, please. All right, take a bow. All right, now you all have to work with me. I want all the Marines of 1-9 here present who serve with me or with other companies to stand and be recognized. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Those were my coaches and teachers in 1967 when I was Second Lieutenant Labuti. Please sit down, gentlemen. I also want to recognize an old friend and his wife, Terry Swanger and Kay. Where are you? Stand up, say hello. These are folks from Montana. Let's see, there may be one other person I want to recognize. Oh yes, there is one other person. A special person indeed. I want to recognize and applaud this person. A person who indeed deserves her own medal for the great support, undying, unwavering support for Jim and the award. Linda Brown, take a bow. My friend, Jim, there's an old saying in the Marine Corps, no guts, no glory, no Navy Cross. Jim, you were indeed gutsy and did bring great glory to our beloved Corps, demonstrating extraordinary bravery and courage as reflected in your Navy Cross and the citation we all heard. And you followed the ethos and philosophy of the Corps, leave no Marine behind. Amen. I salute you, Jim. And by extension, I salute all sailors and Marines from 1-9 for their leadership and patriotism. And the truth be told, for all who fought in Vietnam, all services. Your efforts, my friends, were both noble and honorable. And soon, I will be drinking a drink with you, an adult refreshment. And I'll drink for days gone by, good times and bad, and for the memories of special friends who fought the good fight and who paid the ultimate price. God bless them all. God bless you, and God bless our beloved Corps. Thank you all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Navy Cross recipient Corporal Jim Stogner.
I'd just like to thank all of you for coming for this ceremony, and I accept this award in honor of these men who fought with me that night, and for the ones that are not here physically but are here in spirit. God bless all of you. God bless the Corps.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of Anchors Aweigh and the Marines Hymn. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. Please remain in the vicinity. A roll call will begin in 5 to 10 minutes.
You don't leave nobody behind. You bring everybody out. Chesty Puller in the Chosin Reservoir brought every Marine out, dead and wounded. You don't leave them. You either adapted or you died. I mean, you can't paint a pretty picture because they're not done to paint. It was hot, 130 degrees, sweaty, humid, and then it started raining one day, and 4 months later it quit. We were wet, and everything we had was wet. We walked everywhere we went. We lived off sea rations, which were 26 years old. It's just the way it was. It was just a rough, it was hell over there. We'd set in for the night. Otters had brought our resupplies into us. And as we was cooking our sea rations and getting ready for the night, we heard the otters in the ambush, and we were told, leave your pack, grab your rifles, and we're moving out. And we got on line to sweep through, and the NVA were dug into the hedgerow. We estimated a battalion strength, and we had Charlie Company. We got about 15 yards from the tree line when an artillery illumination round went off, and they opened up, and most of the platoon were either dead or wounded. The wounded, you could hear them screaming, you could hear them calling for help. And the NVA sent men in there and was shooting our Marines in the head and stripping them of their gear and their rifles. And I did what I could do to help save more people as I could save. All I had left was my K-bar because my rifle had been hit with a round and it drove it back into my face and broke my nose. I had tripped a couple and killed them, and then they threw a grenade in and it landed right beside my helmet. And I got shrapnel and concussion from it. Was knocked unconscious.
At this point, Lance Corporal Stogner showed his true mettle. He could have crawled off in the dark and gotten away, but he did not. He cautiously made his way through the vegetation to where Lance Corporal Fobbs was being held in a small clearing. Using the darkness and vegetation as cover, he crept forward to where the sandy ground allowed him to see 4 NVA soldiers around Lance Corporal Fobbs, who was on the ground. They were kicking him and jabbing sticks into his wounds. Lance Corporal Stogner's bravery and extraordinary heroism on the night of April 5th, 1967 was never recognized until now, 52 years later.
By the grace of God, I'm here.